Hello, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 8, Episode 7 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, slated to come out on May 26, 2025. Happy Memorial Day. I got it wrong last time, but this time, getting it right. This is Memorial Day for all those that celebrate in the U.S. It's a time of memorial, so remember those who, served and sacrificed for our country. And with all the problems that are happening in our country right now, man, it's a good time to remember, but also just remember the good stuff. Try not to get caught up in the bad. I hope on a celebratory day. So, what we're having today is the Allgash Chocolate Orange Porter. It's a 7% ABV porter that is from Allgash Brewing. And what this says on the copy on the label is, inspired by a tempting combination of chocolate and orange, we created a smooth porter. Cocoa nibs delivered notes of dark chocolate and roasted coffee, while a combination of sweet orange peel and orange zest draw out the hints of citrus and beer finish. And this is a limited release, so you might not be able to get it unless you just happen to run across it somewhere. So, what do you think, Ricky?
It's pretty good. And I'd say the tasting notes are pretty much spot on. I think you get a lot of chocolate, you get a lot of coffee, and then you get orange peel.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like a fruit beer or like a blood orange cider or anything like that where you taste like the orange in terms of the juice. Like a little bit of, I think, an extra bitterness compared to the bitter you get from the cocoa nibs and the chocolate. So it's it's still, bitter to an extent, but it's a very well-rounded, developed bitter flavor as opposed to one note.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. It's a very complex beer, and I'll be interested to see what it's like when it warms up a little bit. But it is everything that you would expect for a porter to be. It's got sweet, chocolatey notes. It's got a little bit of bitterness, so it's almost stout-like in that kind of regards. And it seems like the orange brings out more of the bitterness than it just you would normally have in a porter, which is kind of refreshing and nice and things like that. Although you don't really think of bitterness as being nice. It's more like a citrus bitterness, like you'd get from an orange juice or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's that pith to it that's almost where coffee bitter and chocolate bitter is it's bitter. Obviously, it's in the name, but they're very soft bitter. It's more like how tannins are bitter.
Right.
Where it's there. It's more drying out your mouth than it is being a punch. Whereas pith is very it's very punchy. It's very acidic still.
Yeah.
So it's that acidic bitter taste to it that I do think rounds it out really well.
It does. It does. It has a niceness to it that rounds it out very well, for sure. This computer's updating. It's doing weird things. So it got me distracted for a moment. Sorry. Anyways, so we'll talk more about whether or not we think this is a great beer, warm or cold, in a little bit. But if you like chocolate and orange, this isn't a bad beer to get. So you should definitely try it. Let's talk about the electric truck that is being touted for under $30K. They're actually saying that you can get it for around $20K with rebate, because there's an $8K rebate from the government if you buy one, buy an electric vehicle, and then the truck itself, base model, is $20,000, and it doesn't have all the crazy tech in it.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I've forgotten the name of the truck, so let me look it up real quick.
That's a good point, though, while you're looking up the name. I think we talked about this maybe a couple episodes ago. Maybe I'm crazy, but there's a lot of smart features in cars now. I think smart safety features make a lot of sense. I think a lot of this other smart, everything's on a dashboard, there's no buttons anymore, is getting a little difficult. Because, one of the classic things to go wrong in a car is your electrical starts to have problems, And, I got to do something in my dash. And that's always, a more complicated repair. They're not necessarily hard, but they take time. Because you got to take that whole dash apart and do whatever you're going to do and put it all back together.
Yep.
So, I do kind of invite some more dumb features on cars in places where dumb features are totally fine. My AC can be dumb. I can do a knob for that, no problem. You know, do I want, if I'm starting to drift lane, it to beep at me? Yeah, that's awesome. I don't need it to try and determine it. Like, we'll keep it at a steady 68 degrees always and dynamically adjust and everything like that. Because I don't know about anybody else. AC has gone out on every single car I've ever had. I've had to get the AC fixed at least once or twice on every vehicle. Now, granted, I run my vehicles for a really long time. You know, I keep a vehicle for like 8 years on average. But still, you know, I've never had a car the AC didn't go out. And now the AC smart controlled goes out. How much expensive is that going to be? You know?
It does seem like a planned obsolescence cash grab in those sorts of areas. You know, make it as cheap as possible, but make it seem as fancy as possible, right?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know what like the margins on cars are nowadays, but like it is to that extent of like, does it need to be a smart feature?
Right.
Like, I think about that a lot with like smart TVs too. Depending on what you're going to do with the TV, you don't need a smart TV. Like, if I got my TV is there to play video games on for my daughter, so it's always got the PlayStation connected. PlayStation has all the apps.
Yep.
I don't need my TV to also be smart.
I mean, this is true. This TV that's sitting over here in the office, that TLC, right, TCL over there, not TLC, it has smart functions on it, and I do use them, but I don't really need it.
Yeah.
Like, I could disconnect that from the network, you know, just turn it into a panel and use the, you know, all the other devices that I have connected to my PlayStation 5 or, you know, whatever, right?
Yep.
And that's, why do you need the smart stuff? How are you profiting from that? Like, what's the kind of...
Like, I mean, I'm sure there are people who enjoy it, and that's fine. But I do like seeing that you get a choice. That, like, there are going to be some cars out there that if you just want a cheaper vehicle that doesn't have all the bells and whistles because you don't want the bells and whistles, it's available to you.
It's very true. And I like the Slate. The Slate is the name of the truck. I like the Slate. It's a little bit smaller of a truck, but like if you just needed something to like run around and pick up stuff, like go down to Home Depot and bring something back, it's got plenty of power. It's got a lot of torque. It's, you know, a good little around town, and for 20 grand, and you can add kits to it as time goes on. So you can, you know, if you want a fancier radio, you can put a fancier radio in. If you need to have like a towing kit put in, you can put the towing kit in. All that stuff.
Yep.
But the base functionality of all that is there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of value in having like a little in-town truck. You know, I think I grew up with people that had a lot of trucks out in the country, and a lot of them were not getting leverage the way they should have, and could have absolutely had like a smaller bed or something like that. Because you're right, I think for a lot of people, if you're not working in like a space that requires it, like you don't do a lot of construction or a lot of gardening or things like that you might fill up a whole truck bed of something with, you want that truck bed because it's like, I might need to move some furniture. Exactly, you said, I'm going to go down to Home Depot and grab like 15 bags of soil and not, you know, 50.
Right.
You know, stuff like that is still very valuable. You want to like transport a mattress. Stuff like that is great to have, but you don't need a huge honking truck. It doesn't need all of the fancy bells and whistles if that's your use case.
Right, and a lot of the trucks that are made now, they're not made to be beat up, and, you know, they're not meant to be tough. Even that's on their advertisements and stuff like that. I mean, you look at the Cybertruck; it just falls apart when you start using.
Yeah, well, the Cybertruck's its own thing. But no, I agree with you. I was actually reading an article not too long ago that like the average truck bed size in America is shrinking because America has reclassified different bed sizes, and so like trucks are getting bigger, but the actual bed is not. That's why you're seeing more trucks now like default have the cabin in it and stuff like that. The vehicles are getting larger, but you know, they don't want to pay the whatever. I don't know if it's a tax or a fine or however it works. Of the like, oh, if we had our old bed sizes from 20 years ago, this would now be a different class of vehicle and it costs more.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. It is I mean, a truck costs like $80,000 base now for like, you know, the big trucks, and when you start going down to smaller trucks, you know, they're still up there in the 50s and 60s. Which trucks used to be cheap things. Like you could buy them for like, you know, $10,000-$15,000.
Yeah, my dad got a used truck for like $12,000.
Yeah, well, so all right, used is a little bit different. I mean, you can still get like cheaper, like 14 grand work, you know, like beat up trucks. But like if you're talking
but
about
like his wasn't a beat up truck. Like it was like 2 or 3 years old, and he got it for $12,000, maybe less. It actually might have only been $9,000. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Vehicles nowadays they're just nuts in general.
So going back to the electric truck though,
Mm.
like it's got a lot of good features if you want to like, you know, spec it out. You
Yeah.
can make it more expensive, but starting out at like that $30,000 price point for a fully functional truck that you could turn into an SUV if you wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
you can do all this other stuff with. That's kind of, you know, nice.
Yeah.
Like that's in the this is the direction that we should be going for sustainability in, you know, like an American market or something like that, because
Yeah.
always making price go up is not good, you know.
No, it's not. I mean, we're already seeing like car loans start to default at the higher rates than almost ever before. You know, it's cars are expensive and you need one, but like if you can't afford to pay for it, you know, you're just gonna get people getting car loans because they have to have a car, then can't pay it, and that's gonna not be great. You know, it's uh, it's not really self-sustaining.
No, it's not. So I'm glad to see this. I'm really interested in it. I'm going to keep, you know, following it as it goes along. Read the article. It's got some great information about it. It seems a little bit more like an advertisement than
A little
like,
bit,
like,
but
yeah, but it in a good way. Like
yeah,
it, um, that's one of the like good advertisements I think in my mind. Like
yeah, it's
somebody
very
talking
detailed.
about it, they're hyped about it. They give a good bit
Mm-hmm.
of detail about what the thing is, what the positives of it are. It's not just like this corporate speak thing that we watched
Yeah,
about
that's what I was
3D
gonna say.
printing homes last night.
Yeah, it's an advertisement, but it's not. It doesn't feel manufactured. It feels like
Right.
they've just gotten someone who's interested in the vehicle, who wants to talk about the vehicle, who's like a car person, and not hey, here's the 2 minute clip I want you to read that we're going to insert into Spotify and YouTube and everything like that. You know?
Exactly. Um, exactly. So let's talk about phones trackings and analytics. And you know, should we be worried? So this came out of a thing that I was watching. I think it was it was a YouTube video, and then I saw this article pop up, and I was like, you know, that'd be a good thing for us to talk about. But basically, you know, all of us have had this thing happen where we start talking about something, and then we get an ad for it, like on our phone,
Yeah.
or something like that. And we know that there are companies out there that are taking, you know, our phones, the lady tube things that we have, you know, whether it's, you know, the Google or the Amazon or whatever, those are all listening to you all the time. They're getting snippets of stuff and analyzing like your actions, your interactions with things. But according to this article and according to some other things, they're not like reporting back all of that information back to
Yeah.
like Amazon or Google or, you know, whatever other advertisement place that it's getting sent to. What's actually happening is the algorithm knows you so well, it sees what you're doing, you know, in like context of the sensors and things that are going
Yeah.
on around. And so because of that, it's picking up that you're interacting with this thing in some way. Now, the thing that I find hard to believe is if I'm not at the grocery store or I'm just talking to a friend over the phone, you know, like we're talking about whatever, you know, we could say the newest video game that came out, and then I start
Yeah.
getting advertisements for that. Now, okay, it's fair. It knows that I'm a gamer. It's fair. It knows that I am, you know, someone who's interested in this type of game, right? So like a role playing game, let's say. The the thing that makes it like a little bit hard for me to just be like, all right, yeah, but how did you know in that moment that I was doing this? And it, you know, once or twice, that's a coincidence. When it happens a lot to many people across the board, that seems a little bit more like you're probably looking at more stuff than you should. Now, you know, both things said, no, we just know you that well, essentially.
Yeah.
But and this is the last thing that I'll say about that. How many times have these marketing companies and things like that lied to us about stuff? They've actually been collecting more data than they said that they were, and you know, that just basically makes it like I'm not so sure that that's actually accurate.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent of things like phone calls and video calls and like your Alexas and stuff like that, I do tend to believe that because there are pretty tight regulations on when you can record somebody. Now, what I think really gets people is the extent of other information they have. You have to think about it. You know, you don't have a like an ad profile that's basically just like, hey, this is what your phone provider knows. This is what Amazon knows. This is what like Google knows. Those things all connect into like a larger AdSense kind of profile, and you're like, so I to maybe try and rationalize that. Like, let's say we're sitting down here. I'm going to take Oblivion Remake because that came out, and we talked about that a couple times. How this is where I see stuff like that going, because this is at least how I tend to have phone calls about video games and stuff like that. We're sitting down and like, yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, it is really cool. Who actually made the remake? Like, did Bethesda do it, or did they have another company do it? That's a quick Google search.
Yep.
Now Google knows I'm looking something up for that game. My ISP provider knows I'm looking something up for that game. Realistically, if I'm on the phone, I searched it on my phone. So now my phone knows that I looked up something about that game.
And you looked it up while you were talking to me.
Potentially. Like, even that, I'm not, well, I don't know. I don't know if they can sort of information.
They can pull your contact information. That's one of the permissions that the phone has to pull contact
information. That's true. And they can try and tie that in and say, hey, these two people know each other. So, like, I think it's a little disingenuous to say, oh, we just know you that well. Like, the algorithm is so smart. And not that we have access to so much information about what you're doing at any particular moment. I don't have to record what you say.
Yeah, and that is kind of what the article said, more like that. Like, they have so much information. The video was more like the person saying, we just know you that well.
Yeah.
The article more goes down into the weeds of, we just have that much information. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anything you do that hits the internet, we know about. And that's most things nowadays. Right? Like, even if you just sit down and you're like, I'm going to play a single-player video game. I'm going to go play that Oblivion Remastered. Well, Steam knows what I'm playing. My ISP saw me do my OAuth check-in or whatever it is that secures out on the back end, because I'm not playing it offline mode. My browser's open. A lot of browsers say, hey, I can see what else you're doing on your computer while the browser is open.
Yep.
A lot of people know I just booted up that game.
Yep.
And they know how long I spent in it, and so there's definitely that side of it. I'd say one thing I never really looked into. So nobody take this as a serious thing that's happening, and more this is just in that same line of something people have been accused of. I did read someone who wrote up an article once saying that they thought when you're doing things like watching YouTube, if your camera is on, your camera is looking at you to target ads for you. Because what they claimed is when they watched the exact same videos, both of themselves as an adult, and putting their like 6-year-old in front of the tablet, because they were just watching it on, I think it was like an iPad, that they got different, more child-appropriate ads when the child was doing it. Now, again, done no research on this. I'm not saying this is a thing that does happen, but, that's maybe another thing to look into.
Yeah, so, having some hash of a word. So this is what I think probably happens, You and I are talking. We're talking about something that we normally don't talk about. We start talking about Dawn dish soap and how you can use that to clean bottles for brewing, and then suddenly both of us get advertisements for Dawn dish soap, right? I don't think that it was just recording us, like talking and like sent that off to Dawn, and then Dawn was like, no, send them an ad. Probably what happened is there is a hash of something. We looked up something related to it, like cleaning bottles or something like that.
Yeah, like, is Dawn safe to wash? Like something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It picked up a hash of the word clean in our voice transcript, because it is recording us, right? And then the phone like added that to our advertising ID, and both of us got it around the same time. We're in location to one another because the phone knows our location. So, like, it's information like that, which goes more along with like what the article said, right?
Yeah, probably something like to that nature.
Yeah. So then the question is, we've given all this up. We have all these things. Should we just like bury our smartphones, our lady tubes, and turn off YouTube and check out of the modern society? Like, what should we do like about this? Is there anything that we should do? Is it just something that we should accept? Because on one hand, right, the cons, that's a lot of information about you, and security breaches are happening every day.
Mm-hmm.
The more information someone has about you, the more nefarious things they can do. And maybe you're not a particular target right now, but what if you win the lottery?
Yeah.
Or what happens if you suddenly get a position at a place that makes you a target or something like that? Having all this information, you're like, oh, that would never happen. What if your kid they go on to be something like that, and you've had all this information? It's disingenuous to be like, I'm not a target, I'm not important enough. Yeah, you're not important enough, but the things that you're connected to could be, or you could become important enough one day. Or like getting $10 from you, getting $10 from everyone can make someone a billionaire.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like you don't. Sure, you're probably not important enough that someone is actively hunting for your information. But oh, boom, whatever got hacked? 100 million people's information secured. They just buy all 100 million. You know that nefarious person who wants to buy that leaked information doesn't say, you know what? What about that Ricky guy?
Yeah.
I want just him. Yeah, no one's pulling me off a list. But they're buying all of it, and they're scrolling through it, and they're saying, okay, does anyone here look good, or do I just like hit all of them?
Yeah.
It's like I've got 100 million email addresses. Boom, just throw it out to everybody.
See if I can log into their router and like maybe turn that into a botnet. See what I can do here. Maybe I can get in their web session.
Leaked information. I don't think generally goes that far. I think that's actually I was wondering that exact same thing. I think that's a parallel security issue, but like it's the same thing. It's about if they get in, maybe you don't have anything worth stealing. Well, now you're part of the botnet. You're making the problem worse.
You can if they have IP information and they know what your public IP is, they can do port scans against those. They could just, it doesn't even have to be like.
Yeah, but they already port scan the internet anyway.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is like they can be like, this person had this IP address at this point in time, so this is possible that they've still gotten it. So let me just I've got this password and this username. Let me just see if they use that for their admin access to the router because somebody changes it, or just see what they've got there. Or maybe that's not the thing. Maybe they're doing it on like some sort of web session or something like that. We know they use this website. So
yeah, exactly. Like I can see that your information's leaked. They're going to try to log into websites as you, see if there's any valuable information in them. Yeah, stuff like that happens all the time.
Yeah.
I've got one or two websites that their old passwords are not connected to anything else, but I still get like a reset link, and it's like, oh, this website wants you to reset your password. Like, did you request this? Like, no. As people are like trying to get into stuff like that, 100%. I don't think too many leaks. So like when we talk about like network stuff, they're scanning all the ports anyway. They're just constantly looking. That's why. I read advice from some people is that you should go in and change your default login to your router before you even hook it up to the network.
Yeah.
Like just boot it up separately, log into it, change it, then put it in. Because like if you're just unlucky and you're getting scanned at the same time that plugs in, boom, they've got you.
Yeah, so software-defined networking like really saves you there because it doesn't allow you to like log in without like some sort of actual saved credentials that work for your all that stuff's driven by API. So unless they've gotten the API keys, they're not gonna, or should be driven by API. This is the right way to do it. The wrong way is, like using some sort of like default credentials or something like that. Well, not necessarily. There are ones, but like being able to get to it from local LAN versus external and stuff like that, like not having like the firewall set up so that it rejects all outside the LAN, stuff like that. My gear that's set up here does that. Like it has it starts with like a default like thing, but you have to know what the default password is.
Yeah.
And the default password is not like the same for every device.
Yeah. It's one of those that's like it's the MAC address or something like that that can save you some time.
Exactly.
But I remember, and you still see it pretty common. It's like admin or something like that as the default for the manufacturer, and your ISP doesn't change it. So
yeah, and ISP routers are the ones that can be really tricky, right? Like if you have like a router or a modem or modem router combo, all-in-one, something like that. That can be the...
Yeah, and I've yet to run across one that doesn't let you go in and change that stuff, but also doesn't educate you that you should.
Right.
So like it's very common. Like when I worked in the support centers, it's like, oh, we want to change this thing. Let me go look up your default real quick, and it would work 9 times out of 10.
95% of the time, because people just don't know to do it. And think about your mom. your mom's not gonna.
Yeah, there's no reason to think to do it because
Right.
you're like the whole point of having the ISP equipment is the ISP manages it for you. You know.
Yeah, that's the promise of what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But uh, we also know that people can be lazy in support centers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
Well, you know, at that point, it's not really the support people. It's, you know, whoever's doing network design, who's like not doing part of their provisioning process of setting a password. But, you know, like, yeah, it's security is one of those things that's like so all encompassing. And we do a really poor job of it. And just historically, people do. People do a terrible job of like security you can't see.
yeah,
It's really easy to get people to understand they need to lock their doors, that like maybe you need a fence around your property, that like, hey, don't leave $7,000 in cash in your car, you know, stuff like that, because it's like physical and people can see the effects of it. Like the first time your car gets broken into, you really start thinking about your car getting broken into because you saw it.
right.
Whereas in the digital space, it's like, oh, some of your information got stolen. You don't know what that information is. You can't physically see it. A lot of times you don't even know it happened right away, or if you ever find out it happened, you know. So like it just doesn't enter people's minds the same way, which is why we really do need, like, I think a lot of institutions to step up. Like there do need to be checks and balances at a grander scale. Like why isn't it required that all ISPs don't use default logins? You know,
Yeah.
things like that. But we don't do those things. Companies don't do them. Governments kind of set up privacy stuff, but it takes so long to get stuff done that like they're generally never up to date enough for it to super matter.
Well, and
You
these
know.
companies can pop up and then go away within the time that it takes for them to realize there's a problem.
Oh,
and
exactly. Like
then-
a bad actor's gone in seconds. They don't care. You know,
Right.
they're not running a legitimate company. They're not someone you're going to peg down unless you're like starting to really hunt for people. So like it is that battle of like you've got the people trying to build security, trying to get security adopted, and it's the adoption phase that sucks.
Yeah.
You know, there's very few times that information has been like at a significant level leaked that doesn't go back down to either a human security issue or a lack of adopting technology. Like what was that hotel thing we talked about like I think last season? And it was like they went through and were able to like open every single door in the hotel.
Oh yeah,
It was-
because it was all Bluetooth and they were using a older like Bluetooth NFC like
Yeah, it was something like that.
combination.
And you know, it wasn't like a black hat was a white hack. It was like they were there for a security
yeah,
event.
it was at the Black Hat security event, but not the
Yeah, it
not-
wasn't malicious. It was
Yeah.
someone doing an experiment.
right.
But you know, they found out how to bust open every single room in this hotel and probably all of their hotels because they hadn't adopted something that came out 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's that sort of stuff. Or like the thing that happened with the oil pipeline. It's like, oh, you were years behind on your security updates. Like you had known problems. Because that's the thing with security is it's not just a like, oh, well, what are the chances? No, when a new security patch comes out, people know exactly what it's patching. And they know if you don't have that patch, you have that vulnerability. Right? Like
Yep.
it's not
public
like
information.
it's public information. It's not like there's some guy in a dark corner somewhere, you know, typing matrix style into the computer like what can I find? No, they find out what version of something you're running and they can just open a book. Be like, all right, what are the known security vulnerabilities on this version? Oh, all right. Da, 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 da. And you
Yep.
know, that's why like when this was further back now is when the
And more than likely, it's not it's click because there's already a tool.
there's
that
already a
does it.
tool that has it.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, there's probably a tool advanced enough. They type in what version of something you have, it just goes and hits every single vulnerability.
Yep.
It's like, do any of them work?
Yeah, that's true. There
You know?
there are tools that do that. Like you just have to know like a little bit. Well, so this goes back to the whole IP address
Mhm.
thing that I was talking about. If you know like this person was at this IP address, you can just target them directly. Like with some online tools
Yeah.
that you have, like you can just go out there and be like, all right, well, I'm going to DDNS this, you know, or you know, do some sort of DDoS, not DDNS.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a DDoS to this, you know, thing, or I'm going to, you know, like try to like do these 5 things here, like scan these
Yeah.
particular ports because I know that they're doing this on this and they're running this software.
Yeah, if you're a person that's worth, like, I think streamers are a big one for that.
Yep, exactly.
You know, I'm just going to take down their stream and stuff like that.
Yep.
You know, so yeah, to that extent, if you're someone worth individually targeting, yeah,
Yeah.
your IP address information is more pertinent.
Yeah, it's well, so that, but again, you know, you don't know that you're worth targeting until you have that thing. You could be a instant streamer who blew up overnight, you know, or you could Your kid could become a streamer, and you're not. You know, like,
Yeah, I mean that's true to an extent. I think I guess let's roll it back. Maybe this is the better approach to take to this as a conversation. I just think we keep every season we've got at least one or two episodes that are like this, of the like, look at this privacy violation, look at this lack of security, and it all just comes down to people don't think about it because they can't see it, and the people who should worry about it because they're in a privileged position often don't because of cost.
this is true.
And
This is very true.
it becomes this terrible situation of like, people don't know they're vulnerable, and maybe we can sit here and say, hey, should that person go live in the woods because that's the only way they're not going to be vulnerable, when also I'm thinking, okay, they're vulnerable because generally companies and institutions that they're giving money to, either paying for a service or paying in taxes with the government institution that's in charge of it, are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, oftentimes because of like bottom line issues, right? Like, if somebody gets hacked and it's like, oh, this is the first time we've seen this vulnerability, do they get some slack? Sure, but nowhere near as bad as the like, oh, you got hacked and you actually had to pay the $200 million ransomware. Why was that? Oh, you haven't done a security audit in 8 years?
Yeah.
You know, that's negligence at that point. And that's where I think it really sits, is like, we need to start demanding people aren't getting security breaches every couple days for things that were known. You know, again, you can never get, it's like cops and robbers, right? Like, there's always going to be a new vulnerability. Somebody always gets hit first. And those are just things you just have to acknowledge in the digital age.
Yeah.
But that's not every time. I don't have the statistics. I'd be willing to wager that's not even the majority of the time. Is a lot of the time it's just, oh, look at this thing you had. Oh, you had some legacy file server because you decided not to migrate that's running on Windows XP. Boop, gotcha.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, especially for the bigger companies, right?
Yeah.
And we're not talking about like the Googles and the Microsofts and stuff like that. That happens to them, but like, you know, you have a mid-sized company that's out there that's running some sort of IT service for a local area, or like maybe they're the enforcement arm of a homeowners association or something like that. Well, they have a lot of information about you, and if they don't keep their stuff up to date, then, you know, now what does that have to do with phones tracking us, right? If you've got an Android phone that's run by Blue, and Blue goes out of business, they no longer keep that up. If AT&T doesn't keep that up, maybe you shouldn't keep that phone anymore.
Yeah.
Right. What does that have to do with iPhones that are like an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 8 running or an iPhone 4S running as your primary phone, and you're getting your email and everything like that through that? It might be time to upgrade that phone or get a dumb phone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, that's another thing with like phone providers, is oftentimes they have a like maximum version supported on a particular phone. You have a legacy phone, awesome. Legacy phones are great, but hey, you're not going to get any more security updates. Maybe they're coming out, but we're not going to support them.
Right.
And now you're back in that situation of, okay, well now I have to get a new phone because of the security. And that sucks, but you probably should.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want, or at least like go take it to another provider, like, you know, take it off whoever, Verizon, and go put it on, you know, Ting or something like that. That's not going to manage your phone to that degree.
Right.
So you can update it yourself at that point, you know, or whatever. But like, there does come a point that like running stuff that's truly not getting security updates anymore is painting a target, and you're just kind of hoping that they're not going to aim at you. When, as we discussed before, stuff just gets scanned. They get a report of 100 million people, and they just hit everybody.
Right.
You know, no one's looking for you, but you just happened to get your info leaked, and now you're just in line.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, they're going to try. The real question for you is, are you 100th in line, or are you 10 millionth in line?
And the other question is the information they got trivial? You know, like some of these things that we're talking about, they trivialize the information that someone could get. If you have two-factor authentication, like you were talking about, you know, at least a password reset email, right?
Yep.
You have all that stuff set up. Someone trying to reset your password makes it kind of trivial, because then you can just deny it. Now, are there other attacks that they can do? Yes. So it doesn't like get rid of everything, but it does make it less.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly stuff that you can individually do, but still, I think at a certain level, Like when we actually, you know what? I'll take it back a little bit. I was going to go on another rant about companies, and I know we probably need to switch topic. But I was going to say, I have started noticing more and more things I sign up for that are like apps on my phone, and I'm starting to get more like health apps and stuff like that. More of them are pushing a like, hey, we're not going to kind of do passwords here. Let's use your phone's authentication layer.
Right.
Let's use two-factor for this. Let's like your login's actually going to be a PIN that will verify and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're not gonna use a password. We're not gonna store the password on our side.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna use a PIN with biometrics,
Yep.
and that's gonna be stored on your phone and it's local cache. So we aren't like gonna be responsible. Like we don't keep your credit card information. We don't keep your login information.
Yep.
Stuff like that, and that's good because that unless there becomes a vulnerability in one of those things, which eventually there will, and we'll have to move on to something else. Passwords are insanely insecure at this point.
Yeah, they're not great. But I think that's also a good point. Like, is that stuff perfect? No. But at the end of the day, I probably trust Google to stay up to date on their security stuff more than I do random health app that's free on the marketplace.
It's true. I think you could look back at it like in the 90s. We just didn't have passwords. Passwords were new. And so we started using passwords, and then it became complex passwords. It went from plain text to encrypted and hashed, and then and now we're looking and saying, okay, that the vulnerabilities that people or the ways that people can take advantage of someone using these things is gotten to the point that this is no longer secure at all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, what I was getting at is I like that trend, regardless of password, of just the app no longer trying to do anything.
Yes, absolutely.
Where it's like, hey, random health app that maybe I like and tracking calories with it or whatever, way more likely to be 5 years behind on their security updates than Google is. So like the idea that like, hey, it's the same thing with like doing OAuth 2 for Google accounts to like log in with Google. Like they're going to do a better job of it, hopefully, than random company X will. And that is a trend that I'm liking to see now, making it into spaces that aren't just websites.
And what I was saying is eventually OAuth will be like a password. It will become insecure because there will be ways to take advantage of that. And we'll move on to...
Yeah, of course. It's always evolving.
UAuth 5 or whatever it is. Like it'll be something different, but it will... and the sooner that's adopted, if we have pipelines to be able to get those things, which is encouraging that that's happening now. If we have pipelines to move off of those sorts of authorization types, and we can then switch and pivot to this new protocol or new schema or something like that, or new whatever it is, right? Then we can quickly go to those things, and they become more secure instead of it being like, well, it's taken us 10 years to get off passwords. We started going passwordless in like 2015, 2016, something like
Maybe
that.
Earlier than that,
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully we are actually going to be able to go whatever other form of blood vacation, whatever it is, we can do that faster, and that stuff lives locally in some sort of cache and it just gets destroyed when the device is no longer used or reset or whatever, and you have to reset all that back up. Well, or whatever, it's like we're doing some sort of data set somewhere that's holding that information that's not in the little app that could.
Absolutely.
So just to bring it back to, should we throw our phones in the sand and like run away from them? I say no. I say we should become more educated. I don't think that we should be as stuck to our phones, right? Like maybe take a vacation from your phone, step away for a bit. Maybe you don't need to trust your ISP's DNS or Google's DNS. Maybe it's not that hard to run a Pi-hole server in your house. Maybe become educated enough to like run something like that. Because it's like owning a car, right? You're responsible for knowing how to drive, for knowing how to maintenance that car, and for knowing how to do any of the other superfluous things that a car requires, putting gas in it, et cetera, right? We all know those people that we look at and we're like, that person shouldn't be driving. That person should not have a driver's license. They shouldn't be in a car. They hit stuff. They let their car's engine blow up. You know, like they have those problems all the time.
Yeah.
They're really bad at driving. If you're that bad at technologying, you shouldn't have technology.
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's very much like that sort of thing. So like if you're a person who's like, well, I can't be held responsible, don't have a smartphone. You know, get yourself a dumb phone. Don't interact with Facebook. Don't have computers. Just lock all that stuff away and, you know, go outside and farm or something like that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm being exclusivist. I mean, if you really like, if just like the person that's bad at driving, if they want to try and better themselves, they can continue to do that, right? But anyways, do you disagree with that?
No, I think you're good.
All right, cool. Let's talk about Oblivion Remastered then. Something nice and refreshing. It's like we had like a bad sandwich, right?
That's true.
We started out with the electric truck that looks hopeful. We went to, this is depressing. Let's talk about smartphones. And then and now we're going to end on, hey, Bethesda did something with some help of another company that actually seems like it's pretty all right. So, I've been playing Oblivion Remastered on my Steam Deck exclusively. Well, no, I played it a little bit on my gaming computer, but it's the same save, and bugs and all, you know, crashes and all. I've been having a great time. But my primary way of playing it's been on the Steam Deck. And you've been playing it on your gaming computer?
Yeah, I've been playing on my gaming computer hooked up to my TV. So I've moved it off my desk, and now I'm just like laying on the couch with the controller.
Okay. So give me your thoughts on it. About how far into the game are you?
I've probably put 50, 60 hours into it. Something like that, across a couple saves. So I'm enjoying it. I think the remaster does a pretty good job. It doesn't touch the underlying engine too much, which makes like porting mods really easy, especially things that don't require like script extenders are already almost completely compatible. The graphics are nice. I think they stick pretty true, except for like a couple armor sets that I think like color variants weren't there. Like whoever it was, the Blackwood Company or whoever they are.
The Black Marsh, I think is what it is, versus...
No, the Black Marsh is like a location.
Oh, yeah, Blackwood, you're right.
Yeah, it's something like that, Black Oak or Black Tree, or like, I know they've got like a little symbol on their armor, but it's like, you know, it's supposed to be basically like Black Knight armor. It's just black steel armor, that's all it is.
Right.
And it's not. It's just steel armor.
Steel armor.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't change that with it. But, you know, a lot of stuff looks really nice. It's fun to get back into Oblivion. I'm starting to now get a couple basic mods onto it. I think the couple like engine changes they did do are overall pretty good. I like the changes they did to leveling. I think that's relieves a lot of pressure, makes it a lot more modern there. I don't like what they did with the weapon animations. I think well, I should take that back. I love the animations. I don't like the underlying weapons didn't change.
Right.
I think that's some problems. That's also a pretty common complaint. Two-handed weapons are a little tough to get into now. Because, you know, we also have to think, you know, this game, again, with not many engine changes, came out in, like, what, 2007? 2006?
2006, I believe.
Yeah.
Because I think Skyrim was...
11.
Yeah, 2011. And it was like 5 years right after...
Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, let's see. Well, we know. It's 19 years old. It had to have come out in 2006.
Yeah.
But, so it came out in 2006. Like, balance was a thing, but not something people really harped on. So, like, the combo now of the damage scaling between one-handed and two-handed weapons is the same. It's the same formula. Really, what you're dealing with is higher base damage on your two-handed weapons. And that's like a static number. And then as you go up in material, that's also a static number. So it's something like the difference between Iron and Daedric is like 14 points of damage.
Right.
And you get that same 14 points on like a Warhammer as you do a dagger.
Yeah.
And now with the animations being different speeds, you get something like the Claymore is like a two-handed sword, is very slow to swing, but it's not had any number changes done to it. So like you start off in this world where like, I think two-handed swords are the worst. I don't think they're ever good. But like a battle axe, or like let's stick to one-handed weapons because they're not as egregious. But like the difference between a longsword and a dagger at level 1 DPS wise is a little bit in favor of the longsword.
Right.
Which you would kind of maybe expect because it's a larger weapon that does more damage. By the time you get to level like 25, now the dagger has way higher DPS.
Because it's faster.
It's way, way faster. And the sword and the dagger both got the same plus 14 to damage.
Right.
So all you're now playing with is that initial, what's the difference between a dagger and a longsword? Maybe it's like, 4 or 5 damage. But now once you've got all the extra stuff added to it, there's an extra 15 in there, the percentage is so much lower. So it does lead to this weird, if you're into optimizing kind of scale, that like some weapons just now do objectively kind of suck at certain phases in the game. But I will say, love the animations. I always do like a sword and board, like long sword and shield, and I've been real tempted and have a couple times gone to short swords because those animations are nice.
Yeah, they are. They're really nice. My character primarily uses like short swords, long swords, and daggers, and those are just like the better of everything.
Yeah, they're really nice. Maces are also decently good, but like I think maces will get better.
Right.
So okay, now it said all the good things. There's more good things, but that's a lot of good things. New bugs. There are some new bugs that I think really need to get patched, like ASAP. Some of them are pretty egregious. There's like issues with sneak attacks, where like it's mostly on bows that like you won't get your sneak attack bonus.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time because that's the other weapon that my character is primarily using. Is a bow.
So like that's got to get fixed. The bug with if you've got a shield effect on that affects your armor durability, that's rough. Not sure if you've heard of that one. That one's brutal. I don't think it would be as egregious if when they now they changed the Lordstone to be extra magic resistance and then also a constant shield effect, which I think is dope. I do like that.
Yeah.
But because of the shield bug, that means if you took the Lord sign and you're a character that wears armor, your armor is just breaking constantly. Because it does. I don't know the super fine details of it, but it basically like messes up your durability calculation. So like when you get hit, you take way more durability damage than you should.
Right.
So, there's some people who live in the unfortunate world. They pick the Lord sign. They're playing like sword and board. They're like, oh, I'm going to play a defensive character instead of a more offensive character. I don't like the warrior sign. I'll take the Lord sign. And they're just like, man, I can't get through one dungeon without everything I'm wearing breaking. I have to go through 3 weapons to get through a dungeon. Yep. And it's like, oh, that's not how that's supposed to work.
That's not how that's supposed to work at all.
And it gets worse the more shields you have. So like, oh, did you put a shield enchantment on your equipment? Uh-oh.
Yeah, you're hard to kill, but all your weapons and armor are just constantly deteriorating.
Yeah, which then means you're not hard to kill because now your armor's broken. I watched, it was just like a short clip of someone like displaying the bug, swung their sword one time and it lost 6 durability. Like 6%.
Yeah.
They can't even swing that weapon 20 times before it breaks.
It's going to be like 19.2 times or something.
Yeah, or whatever
like that.
it is. Yeah, it's that's bad. We don't want to live in that world.
Right.
So they need to fix some stuff like that. But overall, I mean, it's not a ton of bugs. They are kind of easy-ish to get around. You just don't take that Lord sign. You don't.
You take the warrior instead, and you do a couple other things.
The bow, if you unequip it and re-equip it, will fix itself for a little while. It's like put it on your hotkey or something.
Yeah.
Like, there's workarounds, but like
the bigger thing that I have problems with some of and these things have always been there, but the like constant crashes. So like we're talking about. Like,
so see, that's an interesting thing you brought up. I've not had a single crash.
I didn't in my first like 20-30 hours of playing. I had one crash, and I mean it was like an expected one, kind of like deal. Like I did something that was kind of weird, but I've had like in the last week I have had my game crash. Just going into a door and looking at someone, it'll crash.
Yeah.
Getting to a weapon, getting to a weapon select prompt, it'll crash. Looting certain things, it'll crash. Talking to certain people, it will crash.
Really?
Buying certain spells from certain vendors, it will crash. Yeah. So like it just it and it's random. It just happens whenever.
Yeah, that's crazy. even just for just as someone who modded the original, that there's not a single pathway there. So like loading into spaces can be a thing,
Right.
because that, you're loading a lot of stuff there. Interacting with people could be its own thing, which could line up with that. The buying spells, though, that's rough. I'm not 100% sure what pathway that's triggering. Do you use like the followers in the game? Do you have like those people that like?
I don't have anybody following me right now.
Okay, because I know that.
Well, I have the guy who becomes your follower after the arena.
Oh, the adoring fan.
Yeah, but I told him to stay someplace.
Gotcha. So he's not actively following.
He's not actively following me at this moment.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not gotten a single one yet, but I've also now finally gone and I've installed some mods. So we'll see what that does. None of them require additional scripts, but some of them do make some changes to some underlying stuff. So we'll see what that stability's like. And
you're not going for like getting all the achievements or anything like that, or did you do a achievement unlocker?
No, I mean I don't hunt for achievements, but I'll probably like go through every quest line and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like if you install mods or do the
it disables the Steam achievements.
Yeah, it disables the achievement. But are you doing a achievement unlocker?
I don't bother with an unlocker.
Okay. Yeah, so then so you won't have to worry about maybe like a couple of the things. I think some of the achievement unlocks also.
Oh, potentially, yeah, because that's another layer in the Steam system. Maybe that does something.
Right.
Though at least I know in other games it was just like a flag, so those were really lightweight. But who knows how complicated it is in this one? I haven't looked it up. But yeah, so we'll see. I like that again. I do really like so much of the back end is the same. That like I've already got about like a dozen mods that are like really nice mods. Like they're not just whatever. This thing's a different texture color and stuff like that. Like I got one that all those alien wells that you connect to have like a permanent bonus.
Yep.
So you get like 5 magicka for each one you connect to, and then when you do all like 30 of them, you get like a bigger bonus. And I've got one that changes the magic scaling a little bit so that spells are more expensive on the front end, but they're cheaper once you get to like 90 plus.
Oh.
Which is already how the system works, but it's a little bit more of a curve. Because I felt like that balanced the having more magicka a little bit better and things like that. And then through one end that like changes all the robes, because I like to play like battle mages, but I think I'm gonna play like a full wizard. But one of the problems with doing clothing is there's fewer clothing slots, because a lot of clothing is like dual slot.
Right.
So like, oh, you want to wear like a burgundy outfit? Well, that actually is like your shirt and your pants. So you've lost an enchantment slot. Or like there's no clothing that are gloves except for the like manacles you get at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And like some outfits even include shoes. So it's like 3 or 4 slots.
Right.
So you're playing a mage, you have less ability to enchant stuff, which is a little bit counterintuitive. And you kind of need certain enchantments more. Like you can't just run around late game with no armor.
Right.
Like, so you need to be like enchanting your clothing with shield or with extra magicka so you can cast a shield spell at the beginning of combat. So what I installed was it just takes all of the, not all the robes, but all the robes that are canonically wizard robes and puts enchantments on them. Kind of like how you have in like Skyrim.
Ah, yes.
And so there'll be like a little bit of shield with it and maybe like a little bit of extra mana. And they're like, it's multiple things that would be maybe a little difficult to craft yourself, but are not more powerful than if you were like using multiple slots. So like that robe doesn't have more enchantment on it than you would have if you were enchanting like a chest and a pants.
Right.
But it's more than you would probably be able to enchant yourself on just the chest.
Just the chest. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you can't customize it. So that also feels like a little bit more realistic and a little bit more balanced of like, this is just what this robe does. You're not going to go in there and do something super fancy with it.
Gotcha. So mods seem like they're pretty locked down. Like we're going forward with that. Like as this game progresses, the bugs are a bit problematic, but that's also kind of the endearing part of it. Like,
also, it's the base game.
Yeah,
I can almost guarantee you probably every bug you're running into with a crash is a default game bug. It's not the remaster. It's the Oblivion had it too.
probably correct.
Yeah.
The ones that they added to it are things where they enhanced stuff or they actually added new.
Yeah, there's not been too many
stuff
new bugs, and like
Right.
no new bugs I know of cause crashing. So like if you're getting crashes, sorry, that's Bethesda.
Yep, it's just straight up
Yeah.
Bethesda. But it's same thing happened with Skyrim. Same thing happened with Fallout 3 and 4. Same thing happened with Starfield. Like
Yep.
it's the way that Bethesda does things. Which I probably need to go back and play Starfield after I get done with Oblivion Remastered.
I'm so upset because I was gonna go play Starfield, and I realized I don't own it.
Oh, you only had it on like Game Pass?
I guess I only had it on Game Pass, and
Nice.
I don't know if I do want to go back and replay it, but I don't know if I want to go back and replay it $70 worth.
Yeah, I didn't buy it. So they did a when they originally came out with it, it was selling pretty badly or something like that, and they did like a discount of like 20% one weekend, and so I got it for like 50.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I'll buy that for 50.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna spend 70, but I'll spend the fit. And I probably should have waited because I haven't played it now. Like I should have waited until it went on like deep sale.
Yeah, I might try it. If it's on like Steam Summer Sale, I might grab it there.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten some decent like Wabbajack mod lists and stuff like that now that fix a lot of the problems I had with the game. So like I do want to play it again, but I also am not just going to pay $70 right now for it.
Right. $70 is a lot for that game.
It's a lot.
It's not it, and
It's a lot also for a game you've already beaten because I beat the main storyline.
right.
You know, like I didn't do all the side stuff, but like I beat the game.
When a game comes out like Skyrim, right? Skyrim is kind of the holy grail of games that like Bethesda has done. In a sense, you get a game like that comes out, it charges you $60, $50, whatever, and you're like, look, I've been playing this game for. Came out in November the 11th, like 2011, right?
Yeah.
So it is 14 years later. We're still talking about it. It's still like an all-time heart grab favorite game for most of the gaming community.
Yeah.
Starfield is not going to be that. It's not.
Probably not. And what really got Skyrim there was the modding scene.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was interested to try it again, which I probably will this summer. The next time it's on sale, next time it's like $40 or something, I'll get it. But I wanted to be my space cowboy, and they wouldn't let me be my space cowboy. I think I ranted about it on this podcast that I don't like, or at the time, because now there's mods that let you do it. I don't like that you make more money blowing up a starship to get the extra loot than taking the starship and selling it.
Right.
Like if I go through all the effort to disable a pirate ship instead of just blowing it up, because blowing it up is easier. If I go to all the effort to disable it and then have to board it and then have to fight everybody on it to then take control of that ship should not be worth less money than the gun of the guy I killed to steal the ship. I had that happen once that like dude dropped a pretty good rifle. It was like 6,000 credits. I went to go sell that ship, and by the time I would register it and then sell it, I would have made $4,000. A whole starship. We're here talking about trucks that cost $90,000.
Yep.
And I've got a starship that's worth $4,000 net. No.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So there's mods out that fix that, and also like more because you also don't tell you in the beginning that what parts you can get for your ship are also level locked as opposed to just skill locked. That it takes all the level stuff out. So like if you've got the perks to purchase it, you can purchase it instead of knowing that like, oh, actually at level 14 this thing unlocks.
Right.
Because again, I think that's also stupid. If I can afford it, like I don't go on to Amazon, and Amazon's actually the problem is you only have 8 years experience, and to be
10.
able to buy this item you need 10 years experience. Where no one's like, actually you're only 28, you have to be 42 to buy this item.
Well, okay, so aside from beer and smokes,
which like 21 adult is not that far in.
Yeah.
No one's sitting there and it's like, gosh, I want this much nicer pair of headphones. Oh, sure, they're $300. They're not more expensive. I got the money, but 42 and up, man.
Right.
I just got in what, 7 more years I can buy those headphones. You know, it just I don't like that. That's not how any economy in the world works. It just make it more expensive. If you're worried I'm going to get it at too low a level and I'll unbalance the game, just make it more expensive, which they are. I'm pretty sure they do cost more money. So what's the point?
They cost more money and they're level locked. Taking the level lock out just makes it
and they're perk locked,
easier.
right? So there's 3 different avenues they're keeping you from in. Because what happened to me, level 1, going I'm going to build a starship. It's like, oh, there's not that many parts. It's like, oh, I can't really make a very nice looking ship. You know, it's not even about the overpowered. It's just that like my ship kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, at the beginning, you know, that's kind of fine. But
I mean, look, you don't have to give me the ultra cannon, but why are cosmetics locked at level?
Right.
Like, how come my ship at level 1 has to be blocky, but it can be smooth at level 11? Because then you unlocked the smooth parts. That's no. What? Why?
All right, so back to Oblivion Remastered from Starfield. I'm enjoying the game. I'm having a blast with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that anyone that hasn't picked it up and started playing it should, especially if you played the original Oblivion.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to complete the quest line. You don't have to like continue doing the stuff for whatever, achievements or whatever. But if you could just play it and just have some of that nostalgia, put in some mods and just have a good time, and it plays great on the deck. So if you have a Steam Deck, like grab it and play it. It doesn't look any more beautiful than you would expect for it to, but you can just play it like wherever.
Exactly.
And that's great. That's awesome. So let's see what this is like warmed up. So I'll let you go first. We're looking at the Allgash chocolate orange porter again. So mine's got a bit of sediment down at the bottom. So,
oh yeah, yours does.
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting. Can you also pour for? Oh, I guess you refilled. So you got the last time.
I did. I refilled. It's just a little bit of. So that's clearly some of the orange and chocolate cocoa nibs there. I can taste them. So it makes it. It affects the flavor of it a bit. So
yeah, I mean, warmed up, it's not quite as bitter. I wouldn't say the notes on it change too much, except the lack of bitterness makes like some of the warmer notes shine a little bit more.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I necessarily prefer it one way over the other.
Well, so with the dregs at the bottom, like bring out a little bit of the bitterness, but I was drinking it like kind of the whole time as it warmed up.
Yeah.
There was a point where it became more citrusy, and then like it just kind of trailed off, and then all the like porter notes, like the chocolate and the caramels and stuff like that porter has kind of came out. So I don't know. I think this is a good like adventure beer.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Like you just sit down, listen to some music, and just kind of taste it and see what it tastes like overall.
Yeah, 100%. It's at no phase when I drank it was it ever bad. So like, I don't think there's an ideal serving temperature here, but I also don't think it's gonna do you any harm if you like get one bar, sip it over half an hour. You know.
Yeah, exactly. In a glass that's
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyways, this has been Season 8, Episode 7 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. Slated to come out on May 26th, 2025. I lost my mind there for a moment. And that is Memorial Day here in the U.S., so happy Memorial Day. Other than that, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time.